Thanks everyone for joining this morning. Happy to kick off the session. Today we're going to talk about Consolidated Uranium and the merger that we're doing with ISOENERGY. Many of you might have seen this. The intention of the merger is to create leading diversified uranium company focused on the world's top jurisdictions. We'll walk you through the transaction. Disclaimers, of course. So really, why are we doing this transaction? And it's really the following reasons. So we feel like we're building a company for the current uranium market, which is to provide investors with high leverage to the price of uranium, both in the near term, the medium term, and the long term. And really, it's about our focused production strategy. So the goal here is to build a globally significant uranium producer with multiple assets in multiple jurisdictions. And when you look at the asset base between the two companies, you'll see they're very complementary. For Consolidated Uranium, we built our company over the last 3 years, acquiring projects around the world in Canada, in Australia, in the United States, and Argentina. Where we lacked exposure was in the Athabasca Basin. Of course, that's where ISO is with a tremendous project, the Hurricane Project, which we'll talk about in more detail. We also have tremendous global exploration potential within the portfolio, and you'll see that that's going to be a big part of the plan going forward. Leadership, of course, is important, and this is really the coming together of the leadership teams from both of the companies. I'll show you. It's a board of 6 people, 4 people from ISO, 2 people from Consolidated, and the management teams are coming from both companies. We have a strong shareholder base post the transaction. Excuse me. We completed a $36.6 million financing as part of the acquisition, and that was backstopped by NextGen, Energy Fuels, Mega Uranium, and Sachem Cove, leaders both on the corporate side and also on the investment side of the uranium space. You'll see in a second, the pro forma company will rank as one of the top 15 uranium companies in the world and puts us in a very strong capital markets presence space for increased access to capital, but also for some of the continued M&A that we plan for the company. And I think that one of the things that we'll be doing is expanding our presence in the uranium market. You've seen many other companies do this in terms of buying physical uranium and doing other things within the space. That's something that we're going to focus on as well going forward. Details of the transaction. I think we can go through this very quickly. The transaction is a share merger where CUR shareholders are getting half of a share of ISO on closing. The pro forma ownership is going to be about 30% for the CUR shareholders, 65% for the ISO shareholders. The balance is the investors that came in. We talked about the management and board. We are having a shareholder meeting for CUR. That's on November 28th. That's the only shareholder approval required. We expect to close the transaction in early December. Here's where we're going to sit pro forma. There'll be about 171 million shares outstanding. Pro forma market cap, it's a little lower than this today based on where the share prices have traded in the last few days, but more than $600 million. And you'll see where some of the investors sit in the pro forma company. NextGen will own 34% of the company. Energy Fuels will own 5%. Mega will own 2%. And we'll have, it says there we have $55 million in cash. That's the cash that's on our balance sheet plus the financing. The number will be lower post-transaction, of course, with costs of the transaction. I would say we'll still be in a very healthy cash position, at least $45 million on closing. Okay, so where does this position the company, and what's the rationale that I talked about? How does it really play out? And what we've done here is we've shown some of the biggest uranium companies in the world by market cap, and you'll see that we sit on this table. These are names that be very familiar, some of the leaders, of course, in the industry. Mineral endowment, the second graphic there shows our total mineral resources across all of our projects at more than 300 million pounds of uranium. That puts us in the top 4 of the names on the page there. But where we think investors should focus is on the qualitative factors below. Excuse me. So what's important in building a global uranium company is past production with restart potential. We have that box checked. High grade within the portfolio, and by that I mean more than 1% U3O8. We have that in the portfolio. Exploration, discovery focus. You'll see in a second we have an amazing exploration team, and we're going to continue to focus on that. We check that box. Asset diversification. This is something that having been in the uranium space now for over 15 years, single asset, single jurisdiction companies have historically been higher risk. So as part of our strategy, it's to diversify the assets across jurisdictions. We have that geographic diversification. And again, focusing on those top jurisdictions, Canada, the US, and Australia. We're the only company that checks those boxes. The only other company in the uranium space today that's in those 3 jurisdictions is Cameco. Here's the portfolio base, and this it shows where we are around the world. The blue marks are the ISO projects, the green marks are the CUR projects. Again, and we've talked about it off the top, these are highly complementary and well-positioned in some of the best jurisdictions, of course. We'll go into a bit more detail on these projects. But before we do, I think it's important, we have a lot of projects, but what's the strategy? And the strategy really, as I said off the top, is we want to be a multi-asset producer in multiple jurisdictions. So we want to move projects from the left-hand side of this page to the right-hand side of the page. Already on the right-hand side of the page, we have 3 past-producing mines in the United States, in Utah, Tony M, Daneros, and Brim. I'll tell you a bit more about those in a second, but we're getting them, those are past-producing mines, fully permitted, ready for rapid restart. We're moving those back towards production. In the development bucket, we have the Hurricane project. This is the project that's in ISO, very high grade Athabasca project. We're going to move that project forward. How are we going to fill the buckets on the right-hand side, the near-term production? It's through our exploration portfolio, both in the Athabasca and around the world. Also with these projects on the left-hand side, which I'll tell you more about in a second, but these are what we call our call options. These are tier 1 projects which have historical impediments to development. We're working on overcoming those impediments. Coles Hill and Matoush could be important development projects in our portfolio going forward. Within the portfolio, we also have equity. We'll have equity positions in a couple of very good companies, of course. NextGen's on that list. Latitude Uranium, 92Energy, and Premier American Uranium, which is a new spin-out of CUR that's happening. And then along the whole this whole continuum, we're going to continue to look at M&A going forward. Here's the property position of ISO in the eastern Athabasca. This is one of the largest land positions of any explorer in the basin at over 200,000 hectares. Importantly, these projects have been put in place years ago. ISO was originally spun out of NextGen in 2016. Some of those projects remain from the original spin-out. A number of other projects, of course, have been added since they originally were listed. And these are some of the top projects for exploration in the basin. The Hurricane deposit, you can see there, is located in the northern part of the projects. And some of these other projects we're going to continue to be doing work on. ISO just put out a press release with some exploration results, and we'll update the market very soon on our plans for the whole portfolio going forward. I think it's important to spend a second talking about Hurricane, why it's such a unique deposit. First off, its grade. So it is the highest grade project in the world. Within the high grade portion of this resource, you can see we have 43.9 million pounds at 52%, over 52% uranium. That's extraordinary grade. I think everyone can acknowledge that. But what also is unique and great about this project is its depth. It's relatively shallow at 325 meters. It's very close to infrastructure. It sits 40 kilometers away from Orano's McLean Lake Mill. That's an important consideration for developing the project going forward. We're currently evaluating surface mining methods for this deposit. More to come on that in the future. And the project sits right on the border with Cameco's Dawn Lake project. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. We're working on a concept study behind the scenes right now, evaluating those mining methods, and we're looking at ways to grow the resource, and there'll be a drill program here coming up next year. So, and where are we going to drill? I think this is one thing that's come out of the work that ISO's done recently. It's very exciting. They worked this new geophysical survey called ANT, and what it did in a nutshell, and you can see the gray blob that's around the deposit, which sits on the western side of the border there. That gray ANT blob showed the Hurricane deposit very nicely. What's important, and we're going to continue to drill in and around that deposit to try to expand it and find more high grade. At the same time, to the east, there's another blob. This blob has had limited drilling on the sort of southern margins of it, where the main blob is, the anomaly, has never been tested. So that's something we're going to test this year. And in the basin, these kinds of deposits, they form as pearls on a string. It would be unique to have one deposit sitting on a conductive corridor like this. And so we're very excited to go ahead and test that target in the new year. The other project we're going to be drilling next year is the Hawk project. Similarly, it's been a project that the team has been very excited about. They've done historic drilling. They ran that same ANT survey over this project last year. And lo and behold, there's a blob that shows up to the east of the drilling. And again, that's something that we're going to be testing this year. In the interest of time, we're just going to keep moving forward. I would have a lot more to say if we could sit down. But these are the projects that Consolidated has in Utah, those 3 past-producing mines I mentioned. This is a prolific area. Millions of pounds of uranium have been produced here in the past, specifically out of these projects, and a significant amount of capital has been spent on these projects. Over $100 million has been spent putting these mines into production in the past. There are resources in place and exploration potential on all of these projects. They're fully permitted. After they were shut down, all of the permits were kept in good standing. That puts us in a very good position to move these projects back into production very quickly. Importantly, we have a toll milling agreement with Energy Fuels. You can see the blue dot in the center of the map there. That's the Energy Fuels White Mesa mill. It's the only licensed and operable conventional mill in the U.S. today. Conventional mines need a mill. We have guaranteed access to that mill through our toll milling agreement. We're the only company in the world that has guaranteed access to that mill, other than Energy Fuels, of course. And we've finished a drill program on Tony M just recently, and we're moving those projects forward in tandem with what Energy Fuels is doing to bring that mill back online. I want to spend 2 seconds talking about the Coles Hill project. This is one of those call options that was on the left-hand side of our graphic. It's the largest project in the United States by an order of magnitude, with 160 million pounds of uranium. There's a moratorium in place today for mining in Virginia. We think there's a very good chance, with everything that's happening geopolitically and in the United States, to try to bring about more domestic production, that's something that we can work towards overturning in the coming years. And again, this is a tremendous project that would move right into the development category if that moratorium gets overturned. The second project that also fits into that category is the Matouche project in Quebec. This is the highest grade uranium project outside of the Athabasca Basin. You can see on the right-hand side of that chart at nearly 1% grade. Again, it's 50% higher grade than the next highest project in the world, anywhere in the world other than the Athabasca. Historically, the previous owner of this project did not have great relations with the First Nations in this part of the world. We're working to build those relations up, and if we can get support from the First Nations, we think that this project is a Tier 1 asset, and will move into the development part of our portfolio very quickly. In terms of the team, again, we talked about this is the coming together of these 2 companies. The board of the pro forma company will include these 4 gentlemen from ISO, myself, and one other nominee from the CUR board. In terms of management, I'm going to be the CEO of the company. Tim Grabrook, who's the current CEO of ISO, he will stay on as president, and Graham and Daryl are from the ISO side, on the finance side, and on the exploration side, and Marty Tunney from the CUR side will stay as chief operating officer. Again, a coming together of these 2 groups, and we have very complementary skill sets. That's in summary, we have the pro forma company will have an impressive suite of projects, substantial historic and current resources. We have a focused production strategy, which we think is perfect for this time in the cycle. Complementary project base between the 2 companies, leadership team with a significant track record, and the enhanced capital markets profile we think is important in this space. Bigger is better in uranium today. The larger companies are attracting most of the capital today. Global exploration profile, and a growing uranium market presence.